Hello, Tony Anderson from Florida. It is Monday and it's raining down here badly. Actually, it's not, I don't think, related to the hurricane that's coming up through the Gulf, Hurricane Fred, or maybe it's a tropical storm heading towards the panhandle of Florida. But we're getting a lot of rain. I got some rain this morning when I went down to the beach, and now it's raining again. So I thought I would jump on here. I wanted to just talk for a few minutes about insomnia and how it relates to the health of your intestinal tract. So I'm going to jump right. Hi, Mark. How are you? I'm going to jump right on into kind of my thoughts around insomnia and how it relates to your intestinal tract. So I've talked in many videos about the health of our intestinal tract, or our microbiome in our intestinal tract, how we have to keep that as healthy as possible, because if we don't, there are so many things that can go wrong in terms of our health. It can affect you in autoimmune diseases and cancers and other types of diseases, but one of the things that it does affect is insomnia. And I never really thought about that a whole lot until I got into these health products related to gut health. And then I've had a couple of clients that have had insomnia, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one of them that lives out in Tampa over in the west coast of Florida. So I want us to just really think about, hi, how are you? I don't know who's, thanks you for friendship too. I want us to just think a little bit about your microbiome again, and the health of your microbiome, or the universal health of all the different organisms that are there, like your fungi and your viruses and your bacterias. That if we don't really pay attention to the health of that portion of our body, we are not going to have a healthy life. And here I am all these years later, and finally, and I've been in healthcare most of my life, finally realizing that my health depends on the health of my intestinal tract. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how that relates to insomnia. As we well know, is that most of our neurotransmitters, or 80% of our neurotransmitters, neural meaning affecting our brain, are manufactured in our intestinal tract, in the small intestine. So, serotonin, which is a primary responsible neurotransmitter for our ability to sleep. But all of our neurotransmitters, many of them, hi John, many of them occur in our small intestine. So dopamine, our happy neurotransmitter, is manufactured in our intestinal tract. Serotonin, which has a lot to do with many things, but one of the things it has a lot to do with is our circadian rhythms related to how we wake and we sleep. And then there's many things that affect that, but if you don't have serotonin, and I'll talk a little bit about that, you're going to have some issues. Then GABA, and then, we have epinephrine and norepinephrine. Those neurotransmitters, 80% of them are manufactured in our small intestine. So what screws up our small intestine? Well, we know that the conventional sad American diet screws it up because we eat too much processed food and we have too much sugars in our diet. I've said in a couple of videos this past couple of weeks about that we as Americans eat about 150 pounds of sugar in a given year. 150 pounds, think about that. And sugar is probably the worst thing that we have that we could introduce into our intestinal tract. And it does wreak havoc on our microbiome. And so our microbiome then, our viruses, our fungi, and our bacteria counts are not going to be as universal as they need to be. So how do we change that? We have to change our diet. And I've talked a lot about intermittent fasting. I've done many videos on it. My one yesterday that I did had a lot to do with intermittent fasting. In fact, I'm on my 44-hour fast right now. I'm going to break that in about 25 minutes. So I get to eat pretty soon. But fasting actually helps with that piece of your diet as well. So let's go back to our wake and sleep patterns. We know that the things that affect our wake and sleep patterns has to do with the light outside. So when it gets dark, melatonin, which is secreted from your pineal gland that's in the base of your brain, that increases in its amount as we go into more darkness. So, for people that work the night shift and they're trying to get rest during the day, they oftentimes have to figure out a way to create the darkness so that melatonin can be secreted from that gland in our brain. Melatonin is also excreted in the intestinal tract as well, so we have to keep that in mind too. But what helps melatonin get secreted in the brain and really helps with our circadian rhythm? So those wake and sleep patterns. So again, light plays a big role in that. They often say that like blue rays, so I'm assuming that we're talking more about from our computers and looking at those types of things in the evening actually has an effect on your circadian rhythms and has an effect on melatonin being secreted in the pineal gland in the brain. So keep that in mind when hi Erin, when you're looking at trying to manage that as well. But serotonin actually has a strong effect on the production of melatonin in the brain as well. And the precursor to serotonin is tryptophan. And we've talked about tryptophan before. And that is also another hormone that we can eat it. We can actually get some of the effects of tryptophan from some of the foods we eat, like turkey. But tryptophan plays a role in the processing of serotonin and how it works with your sleep and wake patterns. So, if we know that serotonin and melatonin and tryptophan and those types of neurotransmitters are important for our circadian rhythms and our sleep patterns, what do we need to focus on? We need to focus on making sure that our gut is healthy. How do we get our gut to a healthy point? We have to look at our diet, you all. I mean, it comes down to that almost every time. If we keep putting sugars into our diet, if we keep putting processed foods into our diet, our microbiome is going to have the types of organisms there that are going to break those types of foods down. And if you don't have enough proteins and you don't have enough fats in your diet, then the types of viruses that we're going to have there and the types of bacteria are not going to be in the numbers that we need to be able to keep our gut healthy. And if our gut's not healthy, it's a window of disease to enter into our lives because we create inflammation when we don't have a healthy gut. There's so many other processes that go along with that because of, our immune system plays a huge role in that as well. But your gut is the window to your health. And the sooner that we figure that out, the sooner we can be a healthier version of who we need to be. So I was working with a couple of clients, but one that's in the Tampa area. He's been on the products for a few months now. And this is a man who has an extraordinary creative mind. People that have very creative minds oftentimes don't sleep a lot, and they have a lot of difficulty shutting their brain down. He was a very successful architect, and he also played in a lot of different bands with, some very, very famous individuals that, I don't want to mention because he'll probably get mad at me if I do, but he's very, very well connected in the music industry. So he's someone that always had a problem sleeping. And for 20 years, he hardly would sleep more than a couple hours a night. And he actually went 40 or maybe 80 hours without any sleep at all. And it's because he had trouble turning his brain down. And he also is someone that is very well connected with individuals out there. And I'm sure that he worries about a lot of things, but his brain is very creative and is constantly working. So he's been on the products for a couple of months now, and he was sending me every day how he was doing with, getting his sleep. And And within like 7 or 8 days, he was starting to say, Tony, I just slept 6 hours last night. I slept 4 hours, last night. And every day he was reporting to me how his sleep was going. And he actually has reached a point where he's been able to sleep 8 hours, which is really unusual for him. But, we all know in order for our bodies to rejuvenate, we have to have sleep. One of the things that happens if we do get a good night's sleep, let's just go with if we do. So, melatonin increases in the brain. It helps us shut down as long as we're doing all the things that we need to do, making sure that we have darkness, making sure we're not sitting on our computers, talking on our phones and stimulating our brain. And as long as we're doing those things, think about what happens. Growth hormone in the brain from the pituitary gland actually goes up at night when you're sleeping. Why does the growth hormone go up at night? It helps us regenerate our cells in our body. It actually produces proteins that actually are younger and newer proteins. Also, that growth hormone goes up in large numbers when you're fasting and you get into autophagy. And I've talked about that in other videos. So another big advantage of fasting is your growth hormone increases not only at night, but ongoing. It increases by a significant amount. But that growth hormone actually at night while we're resting and sleeping is produced. And it's floating in our bloodstream, helping us regenerate our old cells. So think about that, how important your sleep is. I talk to so many people that have issues related to their sleep, and it's important that you really spend your time thinking about how you're going to get your sleep, because it's important for regeneration of our body and our cells. So I'm going to just talk really briefly about how do you keep your gut healthy. I've already talked about your diet. We all have a responsibility there. I've talked about fasting in many of my videos and intermittent fasting, which actually helps in the regeneration of your cells and in general keeps your microbiome healthier. But one of the things that 80% of our population is missing, it's fiber. You need fiber in your diet. And one of the things our Happy Tides has is it has a high level of fiber and nucleotides, which actually help with healing of the intestinal tract and actually helps with that diversity and that universal diversity of our bacteria and our fungi and our viruses, so that we have a healthier gut, and so we can absorb nutrients from our foods, and we also can secrete the right neurotransmitters for the rest of our body, and specifically our brain. And then our BioMyX has the short-chain fatty acids, which again, that helps guide it through the stomach so that it doesn't break our pills down. It gets into the intestinal tract where it can help heal the gut as well. And then AD and K, which helps with your immune system health. So I want you to really think about the fact that your gut is the window to your health. And I say this a lot, but if we don't take that seriously, you're never going to be as healthy as what you have the potential to be. So think about that as you're moving forward. If you have any questions at all about, I love nutrition, I love intermittent fasting, I love the pieces around fasting and how that relates to us being healthy. I love the products that we're selling, because that also helps to increase the health of each one of us as individuals, and it actually helps my microbiome and my gut bacteria levels so that I can be a healthier version of me. So PM me, talk with me anytime. I'm always available, and I'm always interested in helping out to help all of you be as healthy as you can be, because I'm certainly on a crusade to do that for myself. So that's all I have to say for today. And hi, John. And I'm going to sign off for now, and bye from Florida. And let's keep track of that hurricane over in the Gulf and see what happens with that. I know it's going to be hitting landfall tonight. So anyway, bye for now from Florida.